Welcome to Woodworking Explained. Today we're going to make a throat plate for the Dewalt DW745 portable table saw. This saw comes original with a metal throat plate, which doesn't allow for a zero clearance when you raise the blade up. It's designed for multiple bevels when you do a saw cut. So when you rip plywood that are cross grain cuts, it actually creates a rip and tears the grain. So today we'll focus on how to do that. We'll start by selecting a piece of wood that has been jointed and milled to approximately 14 inches in length, 4 inches in width, and 7/16 inches in thickness. The throat plate can be made from plywood or any type of hardwood. For this project, I'll be making it from soft maple. The next step is to remove the throat plate and lower the blade down to its lowest setting. Measure and record the length and the width of the opening. For my saw, I recorded a length of 13 5/8 inches and a width of 3 3/4 inches, but I suggest you measure your own saw's throat opening to be sure you use the correct dimensions. The depth measurement is about a 1/2 inch, but we'll leave the thickness at 7/16 of an inch since we're using 4 set screws to level the throat plate to the table surface. Next, reinsert the metal throat plate and raise the blade to the correct height. Now set your fence to the recorded width of the throat opening and rip the board to that dimension. The next step is to cut the board to the recorded length. In this case, I use my miter saw, but you can use your table saw with a miter gauge as well. Because the Dewalt DW745 has a riving knife, a slot will need to be cut to allow the throat plate to rest correctly on the 4 throat opening tabs. Make sure the edge of the fence is flush with the right side opening of the throat plate. Take your time. If this measurement is off, then a new throat plate will not sit properly in the opening. Once the fence is set, raise the blade to the correct height. Cut the board until it reaches the back of the throat plate and turn off the saw. Once the blade has stopped, lower the blade down to the lowest setting. I suggest using a feather board and a push stick for this cut for safety and precision. Now we're ready to mark the curved portion of the throat plate. Take the board and orient it so that the bottom side is facing up. Position the metal throat plate on top of the board and trace the circular profile onto the wooden board. Make sure the metal throat plate is flush with the board on both sides. Now trace the profile on the board. The next step now is to cut the traced profile. For this task, I will use a jigsaw since it's perfect for cutting curves. If you have a bandsaw, that would work as well. Make sure to cut outside of the marked line. That way you can go back and adjust to make sure you have a good fit. I'm using an oscillating belt sander to clean up my marks. I'm sanding up to the pencil mark and being careful to sand a nice clean radius so that my profile matches perfectly with the throat plate opening. If you're using this method, please be careful. The slot cut in the board will actually cause chatter when sanding. Make sure you securely hold your board and sand slowly while applying light pressure against the sander. Now we're ready to cut the finger hole opening into the wooden throat plate. Place the metal throat plate on top of the wooden board and trace the hole location. Next, drill a 7/8 inch hole where the mark was made. You can use a Forstner or spade bit for this step. I recommend using a Forstner bit since it leaves a cleaner cut. With the finger hole drilled, we're ready to do a test fit. If it doesn't sit properly in the opening, then go back and sand the edges until it fits. I recommend leaving about a 1/32 inch gap around the perimeter of the throat plate. This will allow the board to expand and contract without getting jammed in place. Next, we will locate the 4 set screws. The easiest way to mark those is to spread paste wax on each of the 4 throat plate tabs. Once the wax has been applied, Then place the throat plate back in place, pressing down on the throat plate to ensure the wax has been transferred to the bottom of the plate. Using the wax as a locator, we can now mark the holes for the set screws. Make sure to use a nail punch before drilling for the set screws. A 1/8 inch diameter drill bit is used to drill the holes all the way through the throat plate. Next, flip the board over so that the top side is up. The next step is to drill a counterbore for the set screws. We will use a 3/8 inch diameter Forstner bit and drill a counterbore to a depth of 1¼ inches from the top of the board. Now, take the metal throat plate and remove all 4 set screws using a Phillips screwdriver. We will be reusing the 4 set screws from the original throat plate. Install the 4 set screws into the counterboard holes on the wooden throat plate. Make sure this is done by hand because you don't want to strip out the holes. Now is a good time to take 120 grit sandpaper and round over sharp edges. After the piece has been lightly sanded, apply a couple of coats of paste wax on all sides of the throat plate. Now with the throat plate sanded and waxed, we're ready for installation. Use a flat-edged ruler or square to ensure the throat plate sits flushly with the top of the table saw. Take your time and make small adjustments and constantly check for a nice flush surface. Once the throat plate has been installed, it's time to cut the zero clearance opening on the throat plate. Move the fence over until it's about a ½ inch from the blade. Turn the table saw on and raise the blade slowly while holding the left side of the throat plate with the push sticks. Once the blade has been raised to its maximum height, then turn the saw off and lower the blade back down to its normal height. That's it. Now you're ready to make clean cuts. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, please subscribe and also visit www.woodworkingexplained.com where you'll find more woodworking projects, tool reviews, and how-tos.